morning.
Morning. Morning, David.
It's okay to talk with your mouth full, those of you that are still eating. It's okay. I see a lot of new faces here, so let me just kind of start by introducing myself. My name is David Specht. I'm a 45-year publisher, old publisher of the Bossier Press Tribune. I own the Minden Press Herald, which are two newspapers here in Northwest Louisiana. But my passion is business, and through that passion, we started a project. It started as a printed publication, but it's grown into a greater project called BIZ. And my job is to inform, inspire, and encourage you to be better at what you do. And there's so much information out there to do that it can almost be overwhelming. You know, where do I go? What do I do? Who do I follow? And so what I've learned is over the last 10 years, I've learned a few things. I've seen some good practices and some bad practices. We all have war stories we could tell about good business and bad business. And so with so much information out there, with so much things, my job is to merely put a few nuggets out there, something that you can take home each weekend, contemplate it, and decide how and if you're going to implement it in your own business. Now, let me see by a show of hands the number of people who consider themselves entrepreneurs or business owners. Lots of hands, very good. How many want to be entrepreneurs or business owners? Not even now, those of you that already are?
It's too early for that day.
Depends on the day, huh? Depends on the last phone call you got, correct? There's so much out there. And what we've learned, and I'm going to introduce my co-host, because he's my co-host on the Biz Tools podcast, Jerry Frentress. He and I come from a media background. Me in print, he in radio. He's been in leadership and sales training. I've trained leaders and salespeople within my own company. And what we learned is that foundationally, people want to do a good thing for people. Rarely do you come across the individual who says, I got into business to screw people over. I mean, that's just a fact. We go in with the best of intentions. But every day, we are faced with decisions. Decisions that affect our business in the long term. I like to call it ethics, morality, character. But it's those decisions that will determine whether or not you're successful in the long term. And let me give you an example. Somebody can be successful in the short term, but if they have a lack of moral character, it'll be revealed at some point, and it could ruin them. How many know who Tiger Woods is? Greatest golfer on the face of the planet, but he had a moral failing in his life, and he kept it secret for a long time. But look what has happened to him since the secret revealed itself. It really undermined not only his success on the golf course, but his success in general. Sponsors dropped him, other people, disassociated with him. All because, was he a worse golfer than he was before the moral failing? No. But it affected his long-term success. People generally don't want to associate themselves with crooks or with dishonest people or people that are shady. And let me tell you, people don't want to work with those types of individuals either. So what we're going to do this morning is spend just a little bit of time establishing what ethics are, establishing what character is, so that you kind of know. Because let me tell you, there are some things that are subjective and there's some things that aren't with regard to this. And I am not talking about personal morality and where you stand on certain political or social issues. What I'm talking about is the basics of right and wrong in business. The roots of long-term success. Now, I have to be honest, I stole this from a presentation that I went to about a week ago by the Covey Group. Anybody know who Stephen R. Covey is? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And they said it doesn't matter what you learn today, if you don't have the foundation of a solid personal ethics, all the rest of it doesn't matter, because eventually you will fail. Eventually you'll be found out. So we start with integrity, ethics, and morals. Now you may say that these are all intertwined. You may say that they're the same thing said a different way. But really and truly, these are all different things. But the combination of them creates character. I heard somebody tell me one time that character is who you are when nobody's looking. Character is who you are when nobody's looking. You can put on a face that you're a certain type of person out in the public. You can put on a face that you're a certain type of person at work. But when you're alone, you know who you are. And so these three make up who you are. Now I'm going to let Jerry kind of help me with the definitions of each, because this is what we talked about on the podcast last week.
We started the podcast, as usual, not spending a lot of time talking amongst ourselves about what we want to say. But I came in with the definitions, because I said, we all say these words, but I sometimes wonder, what do they really mean? And maybe that's you, or it's just me. When I say character or ethics or morals, what does it really mean? And so I went to my computer and ran off the definitions, and Dave did too. And here's integrity. The adherence to moral and ethical principles, soundness of moral character. And this is the word that comes up most often in the definitions of all three of these is honesty. And David is right. When you're alone, you can ask yourself, who am I? How do I act? How do I treat people? At the BIZ office, I'm known as the old guy in the room. I'm the guy that sits in the corner and asks the questions why, and brings years of experience, not good, not bad, just all kinds of business experience in this marketplace, and so I can ask questions and make observations. The one observation that hit me just as he was talking is that I don't know when you're ever alone today, in this world today, when you're ever by yourself. I learned over the 35 years that I was in the radio business, in the management area of business, and I changed radio stations, that I would discover that people at other radio stations knew all about me, had observations about me, thoughts about me, people had spoken about me. Fortunately, it was all pretty good, but it showed me that everybody's watching. Mm-hmm. One little story, I had an incredible salesperson. Pam was naturally, I think, one of the best. There's other people in this marketplace that are really good, but Pam showed me she was on top of her game all the way. And one day I had to talk to her, and I said, you know, Pam, everybody's watching. Oh, no, she said. And I said, you're a leader. You're being a leader by your actions. She didn't want it. And she protested almost violently that, look, I don't want to be responsible for anybody else in the room or anybody else around. But I said, you have no choice. Your actions speak louder than your words. You can say you're not that person, but the fact was everybody was watching, because I as a sales manager would be listening to these other people, and they would all say, well, Pam, and Pam did, and Pam does, and all this other stuff. And regardless of what I had to say or what Pam had to say, they were watching. And so if there is nothing else that you leave here today with, it was the thought with, everybody's watching me.
Yes.
If I'm in a leadership position, and even if I don't have the title, people are watching. They're watching everybody, and they're talking about you. I'm sorry, they are. You're going to leave here today about somebody, and there's someone in here that you met and learned about, and you're going to be thinking about that person and how they do what they do. And if you do business with them, you'll make an evaluation about them, and you'll be thinking about what they're saying, what they're doing, or what they're saying and what they're not doing. We were talking about that earlier. So, do you have integrity? Are you honest all the time? Do you tell it like it is? Do you treat everybody the same? Does everybody know what's going on with your organization? How about ethics?
System of moral principles. The ethics of a culture, the rules of conduct recognized in respect to a particular class of human actions or a particular group, culture, etc. For example, medical ethics or Christian ethics. Ethics is the one item that can be considered subjective, because what is ethical in one culture may not be ethical in another culture. So depending on where you've submerged yourself, your ethics may be different. Let me give you an example. I'm an evangelical Christian. And as an evangelical Christian, I've aligned myself with a certain set of guidelines and morals, things that don't change. However, there's a thing going on within Christian circles, and let me kind of give it to you this way. We're in the Bible Belt. Can we agree with that? And that people who consider themselves Christians are seen through a certain lens. So, because I'm an evangelical Christian, and if I decided that I wanted to celebrate a great month of BIZ by buying a big bottle of champagne and saying, hey, everybody, let's drink up, there were people that would look at me in a certain way as a hypocrite, because I've said that I live a certain life, and in the culture that I'm in, that would be seen as a negative. But let's take it and put it in a different culture. If myself, as a Christian, lived in Germany, and I picked up a stein of beer, nobody would say two words, because it's an ingrained part of their culture. I'm not talking about a heaven-hell issue, I'm talking about a cultural issue. And so in respect to the culture, if I have ethics, I will not do it here, but it's okay to do it there. Do you see how I'm saying that it's a subjective thing? You still have to line up with a certain set of values, and we'll get into the term core values in a moment, but it is subjective to the culture that you're in. Morals.
Here you go. Pertaining to or concerned with the principles of rules of right conduct or the distinction between right and wrong. I guess all of us have an idea what that's going to be, what's right and what's wrong in business. Do you? Do you know what's right and wrong? Okay, I'm not seeing all the heads bob up and down. And that's okay, because I have to ask that of myself all the time. What is right? What is wrong? What can I do that's going to be good for me, good for the company, good for you, and what's not? I have to think in terms of what is right and what is wrong. I challenge you. All of this challenges you. I thought about this morning as I came in here and I saw the slides that we're going to use. David always surprises me with the slides, but I wondered, what would you come away with this morning? What are you going to be saying to yourself? What thoughts are you going to have about what's right and what's wrong? And there's a lot in business that can be right and wrong. There's a lot that you can do. You can say, I'm going to deliver all these pictures to you by a certain time, but you don't. Or I'm going to deliver this number of photographs. I'm sorry, your industry, but I've been on the receiving end of that, being in the radio business. There's a lot of promises, and then we don't do what we say we're going to do. And this is at the basis of what you're doing, and everybody is watching. I'm back to that. My big topic is everybody is watching you. I've had too many experiences in my career as I went along. I told you about some of them, where people came to me and said, I saw you do this, or I heard that you did this, or this organization is this way or that way. Some of the best is when a salesperson, and I had salespeople that I shepherded along, I would overhear them saying to the client or either to another salesperson, this is a great place to be, that the management does what they say they're going to do. The management cares about the customer. And we would do things, we thought, that would stand out to not only the customer, that we doing what we say we're going to do, or if we had a problem with a customer, and there are those where you're going to have hiccups always along the way, how we would take care of it, how quickly we would take care of it, because the salesperson was saying, I'm going to lose this business. How are we going to keep this account? And it's because we're going to tell them the truth.
You know, all of these terms are tested by the choices that are presented before us. They simply are. And every day you have choices that you can make of whether or not you're going to take a moral stand or not. And when I mean moral, I mean being ethical within the confines of your business. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to not deliver on time, or you're not going to deliver it right. There's going to be a mistake. How you handle that determines where you stand ethically. Let me give you an example. We do advertising. We do print advertising, okay? Mistakes can be made in those ads because we're all human. You know, there's not some robot out there that's not going to make any mistakes, And even if you got to proof the ad or whatever else, sometimes you get under the gun, you get it sent, and it goes to press, and there's a bad error in it. Well, for us in our business, you think, well, then it's just out there for the masses. Well, yeah, it is. But we get a shot at it first because those newspapers come back from the printer and are sitting in our office before they go out to the public. And my sales team goes through that paper and looks at their ads, and if they see the mistake, what do? A moral decision is being made at this point. Do you just let it fly and hope that the client doesn't see it? Or do you get in touch with that client ahead of time and say, look, I just saw the paper, there's a mistake, and this is what we're going to do about it? You'd be amazed at how many people want to let it fly because they're afraid of the reaction. What I've taught our sales staff, and it's been taught to me years and years, is that when you take a proactive approach to that, you get a lot more respect on the receiving end. And it's a lot less of a deal, and you still retain control. You still retain the ability to say, this is what we're going to do, and they're very open to that. But when they discover it and they call you on the phone and start raising Cain, it's a whole lot harder to diffuse the situation. But it all gets back to that choice. The mistake was made. You can't control that now, but you can control how you react to it. And if you want long-term success, you got to make the decisions that do this.
The number one habit in the 7 habits of highly effective people is be proactive. You got to be in the lead. You got to be the person taking the first step. What is right? What is wrong? What should I do here? A true story. Coming into the radio station one morning, 7 o'clock, I know who the sponsor is. My client is sponsoring the newscast. Newscast is higher priced. It's a real special commodity. And I don't hear the clients. They do the newscast, but I don't hear the sponsorship. So I get to the radio station, and now I'm worried. My client didn't run. I went to the control room. Sure enough, they blew it somehow, some way. That was another discussion. But then I went to my desk, and I called the client. And I said, Mr. Client, I'm sorry to report to you that the newscast didn't run this morning. And I wanted to call and tell you that it didn't run, that we're sorry, and this is what we're going to do about it. The client stopped me and said, yes, I know. He knew. He was waiting. He went on to say, I was wondering if you were going to call me. I wondered if, I guess in my mind I was hearing, I wondered if you were going to be honest, if you were going to be proactive, if you were going to tell me before I had to come. It's like, for me, that's like the car dealer who was doing a repair in my car, pick it up at 5 o'clock, I make all the arrangements. Been there? Somebody coming to take me out there at that time, and then the repair department says, I'm sorry, the part didn't come in. And I had been rearranging all this stuff, and I said, what would it have taken for you to call me? You took all my information and my money. What would it have taken for you to give me a call and say, sorry about this, we have a problem, now you have the problem, we're sorry about this, but the part didn't come in? How would I feel? I'd be disappointed, but I'd be informed, but I wouldn't necessarily be. That happens. Crap happens. And I know it.
A lot of you are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs with very small staffs or no staff. But integrity starts at the top. And if you want to have integrity in your business, you have to have personal integrity. You may not have team members now, but you want to attract team members that resonate with the values that you have set up. And the people out there are watching you, and the people in your business are watching you. And if you do things that are not of the highest integrity, then they're going to assume that that's the stance you've taken, that your business is not one that has integrity or ethics, that your business is one that we will take advantage of every situation. You know, especially when you have sales teams. This is probably the hardest place to really hold on to your integrity because they want to get the sale. And you don't fault them for that. You want a go-getter out there that's, shaking the trees and seeing what falls out. But at the same time, you don't want to sell your soul and you don't want to do things that are underhanded. Yet there are businesses in this town today with sales staffs that will say something to the effect of, if your client hasn't run in 30 days, it's up for grabs. And then all of a sudden, it's like vultures in that sales department. And they'll do anything to get that client. And they'll badmouth their own coworkers to get the client. You don't want them calling you, I'll take better care of you. Just don't run for 30 days and I'll grab it. And that establishes an overall idea of integrity in that business. One of the things that you will notice in any marketplace, it doesn't matter what business that you're in, that over the long term, it's the companies with integrity that survive and thrive. The ones that don't, and this is frustrating for us who try to keep a moral compass, I know it, but when you see some fly-by-night place come in and take money out of your market by selling a shoddy product, not delivering what they have, and you're just upset, and you're like, we need, you're almost tempted to say, well, we need to do something like that because obviously it's working. But they'll eventually go away. And the fact that you have integrity, or the fact that you stay the course, the fact that you keep on the path that you're keeping on, it outlasts it. I've been in this market for 20 years, and I've seen people who are in the print business come and go. And usually they come and go because they don't have integrity, because they don't deliver what they say they're going to deliver. They lie about the reach of their product. It just doesn't work. Over the long term, it doesn't work. And if you establish that in your company or in your group, you could be, I say your team members, but you could be a member of the Red River Rotary Club, and if you don't have integrity, everybody in that club is going to know it over time. And that's going to affect your business. I heard a marriage guy say this one time, and he was talking to a dating couple. And he told the young lady, he says, don't watch how he acts, watch how he reacts, because that's the real person you're going to see. Anybody can put on an act for a period of time, but when you see how somebody reacts, you know what kind of husband they're going to be. If he flies off the handle because his steak is cold at a restaurant, he will fly off the handle at you for the smallest things. And that's the thing that people are watching in you and your business, is how do you react when things happen? Your customers, they're watching. There is more competition, no matter what field of expertise you have, whatever you're in. There's more competition today than there's ever been. You know why? Because you can buy and sell things anywhere in the world from Shreveport, Louisiana. You just can. So what's the difference that the person's going to deal with you versus somebody else? It's your integrity. I'll spend more to deal with somebody I know is going to take care of the problem than I will just going for the lowest price. But let me tell you, if the local guy doesn't take care of me, I'm gone. I'm hitting Amazon tomorrow. I mean, I am. You know why? Because I can count on Amazon. Yeah. Think about some of the greatest companies in the world today. Amazon, Chick-fil-A, Zappos, Disney. Think about it. They have this core value system that everybody understands and they all adhere to. Why? Because it was from the top, and the team members and the customers, and everybody knows what they're going to get. And so they're seeing success after success after success. Now, let's flip it a little bit. There are some successful companies. I get it. Walmart. Let's look at Walmart. But Walmart was established with a set of core values. Just because they've strayed away from them, in the last decade or so, doesn't mean, it takes a little while for things to erode out. But mark my words, if Walmart doesn't get back to what made it great, you're going to see a lot of big empty buildings in cities and towns in America. Like Kmart. Yeah. And it's not always because the market changed and they refused to shift with the market. Sometimes there is a root problem that they refuse to address. And when times are tough, that's when real character comes out. When you're not making budget, or when you're having difficulty paying your bills, that's when the real thing comes out. One of the things that we did at our business, and I can suggest it to your business, but as one of the things, we let prospective employees know that we may pull a credit report on them. And the reason why we do that is because if you're stressed for money, because you've got all these bills and no income coming in, sometimes you might be tempted to not be completely honest. I had a sales manager one time at my Minden property that was so dishonest. He would go sell advertising to customers out in these little rural towns, hand do an invoice and collect money in cash from them. And then they would get a bill from us and they said, we already paid it. And I mean, we were talking thousands of dollars by the time we figured it out. Why was it? Because he was so cash strapped that his moral compass got messed up. And once you go down that path, it's easy to go down it again. You know, a negative experience only lasts for a short amount of time as far as deterring bad behavior. You have to have a reason greater than the fear of getting caught to deter poor behavior. Let's go to Jerry's favorite saying. He's used it at least 3 times on the Biz Tools podcast. Anybody know who this is? Yes. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. When you show integrity, you elicit positive feelings from those around you.
Just a little while ago, when we mentioned these restaurants in Monroe or wherever it was, the feelings came out. The way you described the incident, the thing that happened, I will never go in there again. You could see the feelings were very raw. You'd have to be thinking about exactly what they did at the restaurant too. And I don't know about restaurants. There's always so many people in there that can derail what's going on with them. But you'll remember exactly how you feel. The restaurant my wife and I walked out of, and it was her birthday. And the meal was poorly done. And I said, I'm sorry, we're never coming back here again. She said, that's all right, I'm never coming back here again. There goes 2 people out there, then I tell that story. If you ask me, I'll tell you where it is. And I can spread the word about the negative things that can happen. When the restaurant should have done, in all cases, should have done everything they could to have made it right. And it wouldn't have cost them very much at all. And I think it's one other thing that we need to keep in mind about all of this is the client is reading how you react, how quickly you react. If there's a problem with something and the opportunity that I could slip this on by, I could say, oh, it was somebody else's fault. Worst thing in the world that you can do for them. All they want is an apology for it happening, that you accept responsibility for it, and that you're sorry that it occurred, and what are you going to do about it? In fact, I had one client, I told the client what we would do about it, and he said, oh, no, you don't have to do that. He was saying I was doing too much. But that's the way that paid off for us, because that's what he remembered, and that's what he will feel every time our company would come up. They go overboard, in his mind, overboard to correct that.
And it's not just when things go wrong. A lot of you are in the service business. You may be in consulting. You may be, you provide a service or a talent or something. Think about when you're setting your prices. Think about when you are setting your deadline structure. Think about when you're going to, deliver. All of these things, go back to your moral compass. Don't shortchange yourself. Give yourself extra time. But also don't shortchange yourself on the price end of it. There's nothing wrong with getting paid what you're worth. So don't think that we're talking about that. But don't overcharge just simply because you're the only game in town either. Because people can research things a whole lot easier now than they used to. And it will come back to haunt you. And it will become a negative emotional connection to you. It'll be like, they gouged me on this thing. I know they're local, but come on, So understand that. You've got decisions every day that will affect your long-term success in business. And my hope is that some of what you've heard this morning will come back to your memory, and when you make that decision, you make it on the side of being ethical and moral.
I would also like to do the flip side of it. This is great material, David and Jerry, but also there are people I don't want to do business with.
Yes.
And I make a conscientious choice not to do business with them for the very same reasons.
Yes.
I've worked hard for my name in this town, in this tiny, little, big town. And I can't afford, not only can I not afford it, I don't want to afford it. Some people's money I don't want.
Yes.
Because it hurts my name.
And that's another decision you've got to make. You know, you won't see a strip club ad in any of my publications because that's a decision that we've made, and it would affect our, reputation in the community. Yeah. You've got a lot of those that you'll be doing, because simply because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you, everybody. See you next week. Next week, we're going to talk about company culture. Good, the bad, and the ugly.